Welcome to the Wellfuel Podcast, your spot for everything gut health, detox, hormones, a healthy home, mold, and everything in between. I'm your host, Isabel Smith. I'm an integrative and functional registered dietitian and the founder of Isabel Smith Nutrition. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Wellfuel Podcast. This is Isabel, and I'm your host, and I'm here with my beautiful friend, Spencer, who is also a Sagittarius. And who is Spencer? Spencer Megan is a community leader and life coach for women who specializes in transformation and personal growth. And we have a lot of things to talk about today when it comes to growth and perspective shifts and all the important things. But welcome, Spencer. I'm so happy to have you.
Thanks, girl. Super happy to be here.
So happy to be here. You and I met each other a number of years ago in a mastermind group that you and I are still in. And we didn't, unfortunately, get a whole lot of time to actually sit down and connect. And then most recently we were in an event together and we sat together for 5 minutes and I was like, oh, she's like my soul sister.
We fell in love.
Where has she been all this time? And one of the things that I love about friends like Spencer is that you have a very easy, soulful connection where you can just talk about all the important, deep, difficult things. And that's how, as women and as humans, we get through difficult and hard experiences, I think, is connecting with others that are, that allow you to feel seen and that allow you to feel heard, and you don't have to worry about what you say or how you say it. And when going through difficult things, as we're going to talk about in a minute, I think that's one of the most foundational pieces of healing, right?
Totally. Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about how you got to where you're doing and what you're doing and what your life looks like these days?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's do long story short. But so 2020, I was still teaching. So I was a full-time educator for almost 10 years at that point. And like many people, that was a pivotal year for me with what do I want to do? And I was at that point where I was literally so this is right before the world shut down. I was dreading going to work every single day, Sunday scaries full blown, just dreading my Mondays. And just I remember one day before leaving for work, I went downstairs to give Tim, my husband, a kiss goodbye, and I just started bawling. And I was like, this is a sign, this isn't right. And simultaneously behind the scenes, this is actually the story I don't really tell much.
Thank you for sharing here.
Yeah. Thanks for creating a safe space for it. But at the same time, same time frame, I was going through a lot of just personal stuff too. So career, feeling stuck in my career. And then in my 20s, so I was I think 31 at this point when this whole this doesn't feel right, I need to change what's happening. But my full decade of my 20s was spent in really toxic relationships. And so I was at a point where it was finally in a healthy relationship where I felt at ease and all the good things, but I still had so much crap coming up from the past. And I was in therapy at the time for it. And I just got to a point where I was this needs to change. This is not what free feels like. I feel totally bound to my past. And so I bought a journal. The very next day I started journaling, and no joke, month goes by, 2 months goes by, and I was feeling a lot better. I started going into shadow work, all those things. Okay. So 2 months into my personal growth journey, we get sent home to work from home because of COVID. And that's when I felt kind of bad, kind of guilty. I'm on cloud 9 right now. I get to work from home. I don't have to go to work while literally the world's in shambles. I kind of felt am I just a really selfish person? But
no,
that was a huge sign too, right? Oh my gosh, this is heaven to me in one of the worst times ever. And I said to Tim, I was I'm going to use this time to change my life personally and now professionally. And so that was February of 2020. By April, I was signed up for an influencer course to learn how to use Instagram. One of my best friends, she was a health coach at the time. So I kind of was expanded in that way, just to see what else was possible. And as I just shared, I was on my own personal growth journey, and I was starting to see progress really fast with like my beliefs and like my nervous system and just the way like I showed up in relationships and all the things. All the PTSD was like subsiding. And so I was like, I want to like do what my friend's doing and help people like online just feel better, just be happier and healthier. So April, I was in a course with an influencer that I followed at the time, teaching us how to use Instagram to help people. And by May, I was enrolled in IIN to become a health coach. And in June, I paid $300 to talk to this girl, Kat Golden, who would become my mentor for an hour. And she gave me an action step to take. And
wow.
Then I would, And so at the time I had decided I was going to help teachers because I was a teacher at the time. And in IIN, they have you pick your niche. Who are you here to help? Who are you going to be a health coach for? I was like, okay, teachers, that makes sense. So for the next 2 years, I was really like creating resources, creating content, creating programs for teachers, mainly around burnout, helping them build boundaries, helping them with their mindset. I mean, everything I was teaching them, you could really teach to anybody who really wants to improve their life, but teachers were my people. And pretty quickly, about a year in, I was like, teachers, this isn't where I'm going to be forever. Like, I don't want to be known as a teacher mentor. I don't want to, I kind of wanted to cut the cord between me and education.
Yeah.
And in April of 2023, so over a year ago now, I decided I ran my last round of my group program, which was called Next Level Teacher. And I was like, that was the last one. I'm going to transition and really just like figure out how to be a life coach for women. And it like sounded so broad and so vague, but that's what I want to do. And so here I am.
I mean, what a journey. It's such a journey, and the dog's going to bark, and that's just life. And we're going to talk about
which one is it?
Oh, it's Henry constantly. But life is life, right? And like life gets you at different times, and it often stops you along the way, and you have to sort of read the signs, which are, I'm supposed to be doing what I'm doing, or I'm supposed to be moving on from what I'm doing, right? And I think the hardest thing is reading that, right? And you're in control of like how you do it, when you do it, and in what, and in what pace. And I'm watching Paul kind of do this in his own life at the moment, is sort of like go through the motions of, I want to make changes and do things in my own life, and, but I have to do it in a way that I'm comfortable in timing. And I think as partners, we watch our partners do this, right, in both directions. And, I think the hardest part, at least probably for me and maybe for you, like in doing what you're doing, is like sort of taking a step back and not trying to like fix and help. And like people need to decide upon how they're going to do it and what pace they move themselves forward. So,
like I experienced that with like our family. Both sides of the family, siblings and parents mainly. And I've had to really learn how to let go of control with that.
Isn't that fun, letting go of control? Isn't it just, it's one of the
special.
So I think you and I have both had, and we were talking about this offline, had to make perspective shifts and shifts in our own beliefs and our own like ways of how we move through things in our own lives and our own experiences, right? And I think life is life, and we get sick, or things happen, or people die, or people get sick, or business doesn't happen the way you think it's going to happen, or suddenly you hit a wall and you say, I have to stop doing what I'm doing. Right. And I think the easiest thing to do is be like, why is this happening to me? Because we're programmed to do that, right? We're programmed to be like, well, this isn't my fault, right? And then you get on the phone with your card reader, your astrologer, and he goes, you manifest everything that happens to you. So you've called all of this in, right? And it's like, well, whoa, maybe I did actually, but I didn't realize I was doing it. And yet I did it to myself without even knowing it. And now I'm going to try and blame it on somebody else.
Yep. And that's why most of us are stuck.
And so like, okay, so you work with women and helping them kind of move through and transform their lives. And, how does that look when you are working with somebody and you're like, this person like needs to make a change or is trying to and is struggling? Like, because I hear a lot of people out there kind of listening to us talk about this and going like, ooh, that resonates a bit, I'm like blaming everybody else and not really looking at myself. So like how does one deal with that? Like, talk to me about that.
So at which phase do you mean? Like when they're finally realizing like, oh my gosh, like something needs to change, or when they are like in the moment stuck in a rut? Like
Both, because we go through phases, right? So the phases are like, I'm sort of needing to change, right? But I'm not really aware of it. And then you become bluntly aware of your need to change and keep moving forward. And then you're like, oh my God, now what? Right. So like if somebody's sitting there and they're like hearing us and they're like, okay, so I know I need to make some kind of change, whatever that change is, but I'm like really scared, or I feel stuck, or I'm frozen.
Yeah.
Like, where do I go?
So if they're at that stage, where I would start with them, and of course, like there's a lot of deeper work attached to this, but in a nutshell, it's like, okay, well, what do you want? If you're sitting here, you want to change, you're obviously sitting in that energy of like, there's something I want that I don't have right now. So we really want to get some clarity there and start learning how to kind of listen to ourselves and pick up the clues that maybe we've been getting as to like why we want to change or why we need to change. And then the next step is really getting leverage for it, because change isn't easy. And our brains are not wired for change. They are wired to stay right where we're at, because that's what's safe. And change to us on a primal level, like, is very scary. And our brain will say, danger, danger, don't make a move. Don't want this. Don't do this. So it's like, we need to figure out essentially reasons. So a lot of what I'll do with a lot of clients is we'll talk about, I call it the COI, the cost of inaction. Like if you were not to, commit and move forward and make this change, and because they know by the time they're with me, they know the changes they want to make. They know the steps, they know the how. We all know the how. We can Google the how at this point, right? So it's like, why aren't we doing it? It's like, well, maybe you don't have enough reason, right? Or leverage. So we figure out, what will I miss out on? What will I lose? What will I never have if I don't move forward and do this for myself? And then the ROI, like if I take this step, if I get uncomfortable, if I make this change, like what will my life look like? What will I gain? How, what will my relationships look like? What will my bank account look like? What will my health feel like? What would I feel like waking up every day? Right. So we really spend a lot of time there and like really digging deep on both those, because it needs to hit some sort of emotional chord. And then once they have that, then they're not waiting for external motivation anymore. Like they've harnessed it within themselves. But what will happen is, like you've been saying, life will life. And they're on this path to a better life and to manifesting what they want and creating all the changes that they want. And then boom, like a tragedy happens, or boom, a bad day, or boom, a car accident, or boom, a health issue, or boom, a sick parent. Like life is going to life. People are going to people, weather is going to weather. And that's where a lot of perspective shift is needed on your journey to change into the life that you want, to keep going. Because if not, it'll stop you if you let it.
Do you think it's helpful for people to have like, because I feel like, right, we're like in process of change, and then lives. And then we had like this is going to happen by September. This is going to happen by May. And now I'm thrown off, and now I'm really thrown off. So I'm just going to put it all aside altogether. I'm just going to stop doing what I'm doing. I feel like I hear people often be like, well, my timeline is done. I guess it's all done now. Can't continue.
Like they've attached to some sort of manifestation happening by September. Yeah. And it doesn't happen, and then they're discouraged.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a very real thing. Yeah.
It's a very real thing. And so, and I think the detachment from some of the details like that is really important, right? And it's like, I'm detached from, and I feel this a lot with my clients, is like, right, they have some imaginary timeline in their mind, right? And they're like, I'm going to be fixed by blah. And I'm like, ha, 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 ha. Lovingly, ha, ha, ha. Like I'm 6 years in here. Okay. Like, yeah, it's just right. It's like, and it was like, same thing with like the weight that I gained. Right. And it's like, when I detached from when it was going to come off or how much was going to come off, and I really just dug into finding clothes that felt better and all that, like when I detached from those details, it all felt so much easier and it all happened so much faster.
That makes sense, because then you could put your energy on really what is going to move the needle. And to be honest, I've never had a client set. I know a lot of gurus will say, like, write down when you want your manifestation, write down when you're going to leave your job, write down when you're going to have this money in your bank account. I never have them do that.
Yeah.
Mainly because I just never did that. So I didn't need that for it to work for me. But it's like, when you're detached from the outcome, one, you've already raised your vibration, because you're not attached to this thing that you really don't have control over. You're just focused on what you do have control over, which is your energy and what you're going to do. And those are the two things we need. Like, we need a higher vibration. We need to continue to keep our energy, take care of our energy and take care of our mind, and then also be taking aligned action towards what we want. And remembering, like, there's no destination. And I truly believe in this, and I know maybe it sounds whatever, but yeah, like, when you have the change that you're craving and all the things that you want, of course, that's going to feel so beautiful and amazing. And yes, I believe that as long as you do your part, that will come, or something better will come. But it's the person you become along the way. And so, like, when you can put your energy into that, like, who do I need to be, right? Like, looking at everything that you want, which if you want something different, it's probably on a higher, like, self-worth vibration than you're at right now, or else we would probably have it.
Mm-hmm.
But when you can, like, become that person, man,
so
like,
powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the joy, something I'm working on personally in my own journey is, like, actually slowing the minutes down and, like, enjoy, like, finding more joy in the process, right? Like, oh, I have time. I'm not going to, like, worry about the fact that I have time.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to, like, enjoy it. I'm going to sit outside and, like, talk to the cardinals that live in the tree behind my house, or I'm going to, like, play with the dogs, teach them not to bark, which they're not doing very well right now. Whatever it is, I think finding joy in the process also can help release the timeline.
Well, and it's like, why not?
Right.
Like, I always go there. It's like, why wouldn't we just decide to experience it that way? What do you have to lose, versus if I'm going to be stressed about this and be attached to an outcome and try to be controlling and all, like, that's doing nothing for me. So why not?
Why not just, be in the moment, right? Because I also think when we're so fixated on the future holding that it appears we're going to have from whatever this thing is, we, like, skip over the present stuff, right?
Yeah, I'm going to try and give an example. This is kind of like off, like, this is coming out of nowhere, but it just came to me. And so I don't know if this is going to land, but okay. So one of the things that I was calling in hardcore in 2020, when I decided I'm making a change personally and professionally. So a professional manifestation was, I wanted to be fully remote. I was struggling with the 9-to-5 situation. Like, I remember my mentor, Kat, at the time, she had me write my script, which was basically my dream day as if it's happening now. And in that script, there was a lot, but the career thing was, I wake up and I have my time to read my book and do my morning ritual and drink my smoothie, and without rushing off to work. Right. And so I was focused on that. I did not have a timeline. I didn't write in there by the end of next school year. I just kind of, like, kept it in my mind's eye, and that was it. Between that, like, then I would listen to that in the morning. The rest of my day, the way I spent that next year was, I was working so hard on myself. Like I said, I was in IIN, so I was changing my eating habits, changing my mindset habits. Like, I don't even recognize the person I was anymore. And most people in my life would probably be like, we don't recognize Spencer anymore. And that's an uncomfortable thing. That could be another podcast we talk about, but in the best way for me, because guess what happened when that manifestation arrived? When I called my boss and told her I was not coming back, I was a totally different person in the best way. I was healthier. I was in better shape. I had a more improved mindset. I had boundaries for the first time in my life. Other things, right? So it's like, when that manifestation arrived, like, not only did I enjoy my way there, but like, because I was so focused on just like being like the person who has the things I want, like, well, she's fit. She coaches people. She shows up for herself every day. Like, by doing those things, by the time that manifestation came, I could enjoy it so much more because like I really liked myself. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, and I think, right. I think that's like the super, super deep work that like nobody really wants to do.
Yeah.
But then like we're at some point, right. It's like the cost of inaction, I think at some point becomes so steep that people go, well, wait a minute, this is feeling worse to not. Paul and I literally were talking about this morning, truly. It's like at some point you just become so dissatisfied with the lack of movement or evolution or growth or whatever that you're like, I now have to make a move.
Yeah.
And it's ignoring that's actually more painful than the work that you have to do to make the move, right?
Yeah. Or you wait for it. People wait for that point. Like we've all had something in our life happen where we're like, oh my God, this pain is so bad. No more, never going back. I'm making a change now. But like we can create that point by asking ourselves, like, what am I going to lose if I don't?
Yeah. And
what will the pain be like in a year if I do nothing right now?
And you and I talked about it offline, which was like, right. You're like having people like kind of put themselves in their 80-year-old self and go, what are they telling you to do?
Yep. I love that. I do that with myself all the time. Like if I was having coffee with her right now with my 80-year-old self, which I will be because I'm going to be her one day. And what would she tell me? And I use that for little situations. Like if there's an inconvenience or like someone's pissing me off. And I also use it for bigger things, like bigger life decisions. You know, what will I look back when I'm 80 and be like,
yeah,
heck yes.
Right. And like, what will I be angry at myself for not doing if I pass up opportunities? Or is this like a funny, silly, but Paul and I are going to a retreat with actually Bia and Nick in Brazil in July. And I like signed up. She like invited a small group and we said yes. Bia is my breathwork coach who is actually either will have already dropped this episode or if you guys follow me on Instagram, which probably most of you guys do, you'll see that I do her breathwork all the time. Anyway, so we signed up for this retreat and I'm like awake all night worrying about parasites, more infections, more tick-borne issues, right? I'm like vibrating all night long. And then I wake up in the morning and I'm like, so am I going to live my life in a bubble and not go anywhere and not do anything because I'm so afraid of picking up more infection? And I texted my Lyme practitioner, who's also been on here, Mary Beth. And I was like, so I'm like nervous to like, but Paul and I are going to this like breath work and mindset retreat. And she literally writes me back and goes, Isabel, what you will both gain from being there together is way more than any of the toxic possibilities that may come from parasites or bugs.
Love that.
And I was like, oh, right. I was like, so I'm going to stop worrying. And I'm just going to we're just going to go and do it because I felt so called. I kept bugging Bia about the details because I felt so called to do it. But right. My 80-year-old self would be like, why the hell did you not go to Brazil? Like, what were you thinking? Like, why did you not do that? You had one life, right? And I've been using that more in like scary situations and like leading a team and doing things within the business and like, you know, we all have different things that scare us or that are frightening to us, right? Like my version of that and your version of that, we might look at each other's and go, that's crazy, but that doesn't matter because it's like our own stuff.
Yeah. Whatever
it is, it is. And I have personally been trying to scare myself and like do things that scare me, things that will cause me growth, in particular, because like, I'm like, am I satisfied with where I am? The answer. That's another question I ask myself a lot is like, if this was it, right? If this was it, and this was as much as I did and as much impact as I had, like, would I be satisfied? And the answer is always no. I always want more.
Yeah,
it's like
sure.
to my own fault. But, right. But I think that it's also important to ask yourself, like, is this it for me? And if the answer is yes, then the answer is yes. And there very well may come a day where my internal answer is yes.
This reminds me of something I was talking about recently with my clients. Like, it's not that serious. And that's where the 80-year-old self comes in too sometimes, right? It might not be like a big, awesome trip or a big life decision, but it might just be like a moment of overthinking. She would smack me up my head and be like, it's not that serious. Like, get over yourself.
I already look back to college and go, why did you spend all your weekends in the library? What were you doing?
Oh, I would trade places with you anytime. I spent all my weekends at the bar.
I could have used a little more of that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I did love a nice party in the evening, but the daytimes, I had so much anxiety about just like outdoor, just like drinking and shenanigans that I sat in the library and like made work for myself.
I love that.
Do you though?
Not gonna lie.
Do you though?
I don't want to like live with any regrets, but I'll say if I had to pick a regret, it would be the way I spent my college years.
Okay, well, you and I can trade because
Layla came out of that decade and some friends.
I mean, my business came out of that decade and I had lots of friends, but still, I'm like, I could have had more fun, right? Like I could have let loose a little bit more. Maybe you could have tightened it up a little bit and we could have met somewhere in the middle.
Coulda, woulda, shoulda.
But by the way, Spencer and I, when's your birthday? December 11th? 12. You and I are 2 days apart, same year. Crazy. Anyway, the other thing you and I were talking about, which I think is super powerful that we should touch upon before we wrap, is like perspective shifts, right? The like, why me? Which is like very normal in difficult stuff, right? And it's like, why is this happening? Like we had a ton of really difficult stuff that popped up around our wedding that we like, it's not really my stuff to share. So I haven't done a whole lot of sharing around it, but we had a lot of really painful stuff that popped up around our wedding. And I spent a long time being like, why is this happening? Like I only hopefully get one wedding. And, like it was like a huge sacrifice for my parents, the way that blah, 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 blah. And like, it was just so painful. And I look back now and I go, well, look how much more proud of my relationship I am that we like survived all of the chaos that was thrust upon us or that we jumped into. I'm not sure how to perspective wise, but like we are so much happier and stronger and have like such a wonderful relationship that came out of all of it. Right. So I think in the moment it's hard to not say why me.
Yep.
But for me, it's been very healing to look back and go, oh, now that's why.
And isn't that always the case? You know, there's so many things that I can think of in the moment where I was definitely feeling a lot of pain and hurt and victim. But every single one of those I can see now why and what that did for me. And I think something I've been working on myself is when I'm aware that I'm in that situation, like with our recent move from Arizona, I spent a good 2 weeks, like in a mindset that I was like, who am I right now? Like, I was just like, not well. I could pull myself out of it because I then, decided like, I'm not doing this anymore. Like we know more than this. We're stronger than this. And so then I use certain tools, right? And one of those tools is like, okay, it's not my job to, that everything happens for a reason thing. I think we all believe that, but it doesn't really help in the moment, what I've found. So let's just let that go for anyone who's listening. Like you don't have to figure out the reason in the moment, but 2 things, just trust in the moment that there is one and switch your mind from why me, or even like, why is this happening? What's the reason for it to what is this here to teach me?
Yeah.
About myself.
What can I learn?
Yeah. Like, what is this here to teach me? And then another thing is like, where's the mirror? Because everything and everyone is nothing but a mirror. So what is this showing me about me? And when we can do that, it's like, this isn't to take away the pain or like invalidate our feelings. Like you're still going to feel what you feel and you should, because it's all valid. It's more so like empowering yourself and getting back in the driver's seat. Because if we follow the road of like, why me? Why is this happening? Like we're just giving our power away and we're not awake, in our own life. And so.
Yeah, it's hard. And it's so hard, but I think we get better with it as we practice.
Oh yeah.
So I think, for all of you guys out there listening to both us and hopefully the dog's not barking because my team has made the podcast cleaner, but do what you can for like a situation that you feel like you have access to ask yourself, like, what can I learn from this?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like I say this to my clients, and I've said this to myself. We've had 3 years of moldy houses. Sorry, 5 years, 3 locations of mold. And I'm like, at some point I was like, well, my business has, totally evolved because of the way that I like all of this that's happened. And I have so many more people I can help.
That's the gift and the challenges that come our way that are aligned with what we do. And do you ever, I don't know about you, but I have these moments, especially like with the recent move. It's like, I literally help people. Like my job is to help people with their mindset, make change, live their best life, all those things. And I'm sitting here like not putting any of that into practice, but it's like, no, this is actually just an opportunity for me to get even better at what I do.
Yeah.
Because if I had to lean in and navigate it, and navigating it just gave me more tools.
So if we had to say like a few things, a handful of things that people could do to like you and I talked about it a little bit. Do we have like a couple of like fast tips that we can give people to like either like help through difficult times, or like what are some things we can do to like help our like general mindset, help with perspective shifts? What are those?
Yeah. Anytime, like I know a lot of my clients, they'll come to me that they're feeling stuck. They like to stay stuck in a rut a lot. And the first thing is we're always looking at our physiology. Like, okay, like when's the last time you moved your body? When's the last time you went outside for a walk? When's the last time you put music on in your house? Right. So like we always want to be asking her, that's the first and foremost thing, because body moves the mind. Like rarely are you going to think yourself into a higher vibration. Rarely are you going to think yourself into like that good energy that we want. So anytime I notice myself kind of like, in some sort of rut or just kind of spiraling out in my mind, I'll go jump on my rebounder trampoline, even if it's like 2 minutes, or I'll put music on in the kitchen. I might not be literally moving my body, but just music, it shifts something within me. I walk multiple times a day, not as much right now because it's so hot. But that's something too. It could be as simple as like right now, like I'm kind of slouched over, but like if I was starting to feel like a lot of times when I'm working for a while, if I haven't gotten up, like sometimes I just have to like sit up straight or smack a smile on your face. There's 80 muscles in our face. Are you using them? So like, that's the first thing to always think about is just like, how am I using my body? And that emotion is created for motion. That's something to remember too. And then just some quickie perspective shifts. We kind of already talked about one of them or two of them actually. What is this here to teach me, or what is this here to show me? Like the more you practice that, the more you're going to start to see the benefits. And I like to say this, it's like, don't let the challenges use you. You use the challenges. Like every difficult person, every difficult situation, you don't have to feel happy about it. You don't have to be positive about it. You don't have to like put on a fake smile about it. But what you can do within yourself is just, okay, this sucks, but like, what is this here to teach me? And you will find the answer if you look for it. If you focus on it, you're going to find it. And you're just going to feel a little bit more powerful and not at like the mercy of the challenge. We talked about the 80-year-old self. I think that's a fun one.
Yeah, that's a good one. Mm-hmm.
In big situations and in little situations. Mm-hmm. I think for me, every time I use that, the end conclusion is like, this isn't that serious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are great tips. I think it's just, and this stuff is hard, right?
Yeah,
this stuff is, and when all else fails, grab a coloring book. Yeah, we were just talking about that. Grab a coloring book because, like, it's like making friends. Like, do the things we did as kids. We colored. We made friendship bracelets. We played with phyllo dough. We did all these things when we were kids that like we don't play enough, I think, as adults, right? Either, and I think that can make a huge difference in terms of.
We should definitely talk about that in another episode. Yeah. That would be a good one. And it is hard, but I think like it gets to be simple.
Yeah.
You know, like it really gets to be as simple as like a mind, like a feeling you want to feel can literally be a mindset shift away.
So that's a great thing to keep in the back of your mind. Tell me, where can people find you? How can they follow along?
So you can follow me on Instagram. That's where I'm at mainly. It's _ Spencer Megan. So at _ Spencer Megan. Or you can check out my website, which is spencermegan.com. And
Thanks for joining. Thanks for being here. We love you. Guys, check her out. She's got a lot of good things going on. Reach out if you're curious about how she works. And as always, we'll be here. So catch us next time here on the podcast. And can't wait to see you there. Bye, guys. As always, thanks so much for listening to the Wellfuel Podcast. We're so happy to have you. To make sure you don't miss a beat, please subscribe either on Apple or Spotify because we have episodes dropping once or more a week with tons of great content. If you want to make sure that you're up to date on everything we're doing in the business with our clients and new offers and all the things, make sure that you check us out at Isabel Smith Nutrition on Instagram and isabelsmithnutrition.com. See you guys soon.